What up? So we're going to step away from Call of Duty today. I'm going to have it playing in the background. I'm absolutely dominating with the Car 98. But today I want to talk about something else. Joe Rogan. Freaking Rogan over here. This this dude has changed. He has changed, man. And I don't want to sound like the the people that I criticize when I talk about Joe Rogan, because up until this point, I feel like even in the controversies he's gotten in before, we're really just activists getting upset. The COVID thing with the horse dewormer, I mean, people didn't know. The way the media was hyping it up, people were willing to try anything. And people did die. I mean, anyone that got sick from it knows it. I mean, it's serious. Uh, at my house, 3 people went to the hospital. 4 people got it, and I was the only one who didn't go to the hospital. So it's not nothing. And uh, but besides the point is that they were mischaracterizing Joe Rogan. I feel like in a lot of his controversies, uh, like saying that he's taken parasite, horse dewormer that has absolutely no medical use outside of, um, getting rid of parasites. When they don't criticize like ancient Chinese medicine like that. These people are out here grinding up rhino horn, thinking that because it's a rhino horn that it'll make their dick hard. Come on, that's like crushing up toenails and saying that because toenails are hard, it'll make your dick hard. It's the same logic. Same thing, it's keratin, just keratin. So, yeah, people are dumb. One of the ways that I learned logic was by watching The Atheist Experience. Matt Dillahunty, for all his problems, does a really good job of explaining logic and logical fallacies when it comes to religion. Maybe not so much some other subjects, and we can get into that later, but on religion, it's pretty dead on. And I think, despite your beliefs, I think it's pretty easy to tell when someone's lying when it comes to religion, or at least it's really easy to explain what logical fallacies are because they stand out pretty easily. For example, nobody knows what happens after you die, right? Nobody knows that. And if someone claims to know that, they're lying. So it's pretty easy to point out what the fallacy is when someone explains how they know what happens after you die. Stuff like, well, what else could it be? What else could happen? Or this book said so, so therefore I know. And it's easy to recognize, oh, they don't actually know. This is just an excuse or a bad reason. So it becomes easy to like a really good way to explain logical fallacies. And another thing I want to touch on is religious debates and arguments are another really good way to show leaps in logic. They don't seem to understand that X does not equal Y. For example, they'll say evolution isn't true, therefore, my religion is. It's not a binary thing like that. Or they'll say, how do we know the Bible's true? Oh, we have evidence. We have evidence of the flood. We have evidence of that Jesus existed. We have evidence of the tomb was empty. Let's say that all that stuff was true. You showed that evolution isn't true. You showed that there was a guy named Jesus. And his tomb was empty a couple days after he died. Okay, let's say you proved all that. How does that prove that the Bible's true, or that the supernatural things happened? You can prove some individual things that can be true, like a person existed, or his body was moved, or there was a flood. I mean, those are things that can happen. It's not like a huge jump to believe that. What is a jump is to say that those things all mean that the supernatural is real, okay? And just because those parts of the book are true doesn't validate the other parts. Each individual claim needs an individual evidence to support it. You know what I'm saying? And the common thing to bring up is if people 1,000 years in the future discover Spider-Man comics, are they going to, and they do some sort of archaeological dig and find New York? Are they going to say, wow, Peter's from Queens. This is Queens. This place, Queens, is real. Therefore, Spider-Man is real, and he has the powers of a spider. That's just not how that works. You can, if you find out New York is real, then New York is real. That doesn't tangentially corroborate completely irrelevant stuff. Especially anything supernatural. So that's the kind of things that are pretty easy to learn listening to religious debates. Even if you believe in those religions, that's fine. It's not. It doesn't mean you're stupid or anything like that. It just means that you have this belief, and whether it's based on good evidence or not is something you need to figure out for yourself. And if you feel like the evidence is good enough for you, then so be it. But back to what we were talking about is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan used to have this show called Joe Rogan Questions Everything, or something like that. And he often is quoted as saying, "Oh, I just found out that it was just a bunch of weirdos hanging out in the woods, like going Bigfooting." I think he says, like, "Oh, it's just a bunch of virgin dudes, or a bunch of unfuckable dudes hanging out in the woods." There's really no Bigfoot to find, and he kind of walks back his feelings on some of these conspiracy theories. And conspiracy theories are fun. Myself, for example, I loved the Bigfoot shows back in high school. I knew they weren't ever going to find Bigfoot, but the show was interesting, and I kind of wanted Bigfoot to be real, right? And they would bring skeptics on who were just flat out like, I mean, it would be interesting, but they list the reasons that they don't believe something like that could be out there, other than the fact that they have no evidence, just the hypothetical reasons, food sources, places to hide, places to live, stuff like that, archaeological evidence of previous animals like that in the area. And I always thought, what a bunch of party poopers, just let it be real. And as I've gotten older, I've come to realize they're not being party poopers, they're just being realistic. I mean, they're just telling the truth. And the truth is worth a lot these days, especially now. And being honest and saying, we don't have any evidence for that and it's probably not legit, isn't being a party pooper. You're not being mean or anything. You're just saying how it is. And it's the proper belief, or the proper way to come from something is to start with a blank sheet and not just want it to be true all of a sudden. Or not all of a sudden, but just start blank and say, don't start from I want Bigfoot to be real. Start from, I don't know if he's real. Let's look at the evidence. Oh, there is no evidence. There's all these footprints, but that's it. And a lot of them have been admitted hoaxes, and the Patterson-Gimlin footage is, I mean, it's probably a guy in a suit. I have lots of fun with those documentaries that are trying to examine the way the skin moves, muscles moving under the suit. Is this skin or is this a suit? It's fun. I mean, it's neat, it's fun, but it's not real. Okay? And Joe Rogan knows that, right? I thought he did, and he's always made fun of religion before, and I don't think there's anything wrong with making fun of religion in general. There is something wrong with being mean to people who are religious. You don't want to just be mean to people for their beliefs. That's not going to make them come over to your beliefs. Don't berate them. Let's just have an actual conversation. You know, or ask them what they think. And that's the other problem I have with Matt Dillahunty and the atheist experience, is that he doesn't talk to them anymore. And I understand decades of people using the same arguments you've debunked over and over can be frustrating, but it's like he doesn't even want them to change their mind. It's like he just wants to own the shit out of them. I think Ben Shapiro said, the point of debating is to completely embarrass your opponent, but if you're debating about spirituality, you don't want to embarrass the person. Not if you're trying to genuinely change their mind. You want to slowly walk them through their line of reasoning and let them figure out for themselves where their leaps of logic are coming from. For example, if, like we said earlier, if they say, oh, well, the flood proves the Bible, you walk them through what we talked about and say the flood, if you discover a flood happened, that only means a flood happened. That doesn't mean all these other things. And getting back to Joe Rogan, obviously he's had Terrence Howard and that other Billy guy on. That guy I really cannot stand. He's on YouTube Shorts all the time until I hit do not recommend, just spewing all his baloney, dude, about ancient aliens and stuff that he just has no evidence on. And that's why I think the atheist experience and asking people why they believe, like religious debates in general, are a really good way to show examples of these fallacies and these leaps of logic of how they take mundane things and act like they show that supernatural things are real. Like I said, New York doesn't prove that Spider-Man had the proportional powers of a spider. That's just not how that works. And Joe, I understand that Joe is it appears to me that he's trying to change his hosting style to really highlight the guests, and I get that if that's what he's trying to do, but a little pushback here and there would be nice. I understand he doesn't want to be like Destiny and debate every single thing they say, and I don't agree with people saying that he shouldn't have these people on there. But if you have someone obviously as goofy as Terrence Howard, bring someone else on. I mean, it doesn't have to be Professor Dave, who's going to be an asshole the whole time. But, I mean, bring somebody. Maybe Matt O'Dowd from PBS Spacetime. That would be a fantastic guest. I love PBS Spacetime. Maybe Hank, one of the Green brothers, Hank or whatever the other guy's name. Those would be good guests, but he doesn't want those. He wants that Billy weirdo and Terrence Howard, and I just feel like if you're gonna have someone on that obviously goofy, you need someone else on to give the opposite perspective. The way he did with Flint Dibble, that was great. But when he's got someone like Tucker Carlson on talking about evolution's not true, it's I don't hate Tucker Carlson. I mean, he's just a goober when it comes to some things, like creationism. Being an atheist and not a leftist activist is a weird place to be.